If you want real speed and power in your golf swing, you need to be using the ground to produce your force. But how do you really know which part of the foot, where you need to press? That is exactly what I'm going to show you in this video today. I'm going to show you exactly where the foot pressure should be, how you should feel them, and I'm going to give you some exercises to work on it. Welcome back to the Macro Golf YouTube channel. I'm Joe, founder of Macro Golf. Today we're talking about ground reaction forces. I've done a few videos on this recently. I'll tag them below. But today I wanted to get really specific into the exact positions within the foot, places within the foot that we actually should be applying this pressure. And I've had a lot of conversations here in the studio with clients recently, just through asking questions of where their foot pressures are at different points in their swing. And we found some really interesting kind of ideas on where they're going wrong in their movement based on how they're pressing into the ground and at what point they're pressing into it. So I want to do a quick video today talking specifically about the trail leg and specifically about the position of the pressures that should be applied into this trail side. I'm going to talk about some issues that might occur if you get this wrong. I'm going to show you where you should be doing it as the correct version. And then we're going to go through some exercises and drills that you can start to implement to feel this a little bit better in your swing. So one of the reasons trail foot is so important, I've done quite a big video on lead side, and I'll cover that on that video. But trail side is so important in terms of backswing movement and transition. And I see a lot of times when players get this wrong, it's quite evident in the way that they're moving that their pressure has moved into the increase, basically into the wrong place. And the consequence of that is poor movement, poor rotation, unwanted movements in terms of left to right, but also a lack of ability to actually apply pressure to that side and transition correctly into the lead side. So trail side is super, super important. Lead side gets a lot of attention in terms of ground reaction forces, in terms of pushing off the ground and extending up. But the trail side is very, very important. And I think this video today, when you try some of these exercises, you're really going to get an idea of where your foot pressures are. And I think when you get this right, you're going to notice quite a significant difference in the amount of kind of stability and pressing into the ground that you're able to feel. So one of the issues I see when this gets incorrect is a quite excessive lateral movement to the kind of outside of this trail foot. So when we look at the correct pressures should be applied into the inside of the foot. I'm going to talk a lot about this in a little bit more detail in a second. But when it gets incorrect and moves a little bit more into the outside of the foot, some of the things I see is a little bit of a swaying from side to side, or also a little bit of a lack of rotation. So we sometimes kind of just bump into this hip and never actually get deep into this trail side. So if you're someone who's struggling with a lot of lateral movement or a lack of rotation, this could be a little bit of a clincher for you of freeing up a little bit of extra movement. So the correct position needs to be on the inside of the trail foot. So if you imagine from the big toe running down the inside of the foot to the inside of the heel, we kind of are pressing on the inside of this portion. And as we work into the backswing, that pressure moves a little bit more into the inside of the heel. And then as we work through the downswing, it works a little bit more into the inside of the toe. But it should always kind of remain this inside portion. And we're going to talk about some reasons for that now. So as you can see here, if the pressure gets onto the outside of the foot, so into the wrong location, or to the midfoot, or towards the outside, you can see that it's very easy for the foot to roll outside. And if you think then if you're trying to push back to the inside, you've got a lot of work to do to try and drag this whole thing back. Whereas if you're imagining trying to change direction quickly, if you were running or skiing or ice skating, you would be pushing from the inside of that foot, and the pressure from the inside press would push you back in the opposite direction. So it's always going to work in opposites with the ground reaction force. So we should be able to apply pressure onto the inside of the trail foot, push down and away from us from the inside of the trail foot, and that's going to push us out the other way, right? When the pressure gets too much onto the outside of the foot, we can't apply those pressures laterally, and they end up collapsing and end up being basically stuck into this back position. So that's when you'll typically see then you're kind of swaying off, hip then goes to the outside or unable to rotate. And a lot of it just originates from the foot pressures being in the wrong location. So now we know that the foot pressure should be more on the inside of this trail leg. Let's see some examples of what we can do to start to work on this. So the first thing I like to do when a client comes in with this problem, or we've discovered this problem through conversation, is simply just asking them the question of where is their foot pressure. And for some players, it might simply be enough for them to have a bit more of a awareness of where their foot pressure should be. We remind them of where it should be. And for some players, that simple awareness will be enough for them to transfer that through feel, and they can start to apply the pressures in the right way. So I always recommend this is the best place to start. Zero intervention, just an awareness and a thought concept, and you might find that that would actually be freeing for you and something you can apply the pressure in the right place and everything's good. If you're struggling to feel that though, and you've got such an ingrained movement to the outside, here's one drill that I like to give people. So you can see here we've placed a wedge onto the outside of the trail side. So it's basically turning the foot into inversion. So basically we've changed the ankle position and the way that it's kind of slanted into this place, which means that any kind of pushing down is going to also create a kind of sideways pressure as well. So we're kind of manipulating the leg handle to force us into being in a kind of correct pressured situation, which is going to move the weight onto the inside of the foot. So this is always something that we can try. I would like to not need to do this with players if I can, but if they're not feeling it originally, this type of drill was really going to get them to kind of overfeel it, and then we can take the pad away and kind of remind them of what that feels like, and then hopefully they can then transfer that into kind of a feel versus real situation. With this, I recommend making some practice swings, feeling it. You can actually hit balls like this as well, so you can actually hold the wedge underneath the foot. You can actually hit balls like this, and I'd really recommend that you try and move yourself away from it as quickly as possible, so try and do something, feel it. Then you can hit some, feeling it, and then obviously move it away and try and replicate that feeling and go through that cycle as you would with any other type of move that you're trying to make. So you can do some with it, some without, hit some balls, and then move to with that. So just make sure you're cycling through between using it, not using it, and trying to kind of take that feel over to your real swing. Another option is to bring in something that looks a little bit more like a step swing. So typically what we'll see when we take a step away before knowing that we need to move back in the other direction, naturally our body will apply the force into the inside of the foot. It'd be very unnatural for you to take a step sideways, knowing that you're going to have to move back the other way and allow that pressure to roll onto the outside of the foot, right? It's just going to feel horrible, it's going to feel weak, it's going to not feel very stable, and you're not going to like it. So when we add a step style drill, you'll find that you'll naturally start to put the pressure onto the inside of the foot, and you can start to relearn natural movement and natural athletic ability. So if you're someone who is struggling to move with the outside of the foot, just making one step can suddenly start to trigger that. Your brain starts to realize how it actually produces force in the correct way, and then you can start to bring that a little bit more into your full swing as well. And when you get this right, this is what you're going to notice. You're going to notice that you're going to get a lot more lateral pressures. So you're going to push a little bit more into this trail side, and you're definitely going to work the body a little bit more laterally. So if you're someone who hangs back a lot or someone who struggles to work laterally, this is really, really going to help. But one thing we need to watch out for is that if we have a lot of lateral, we can basically end up in other issues, right? So all the time with golf swing, one thing is going to have a knock-on effect to something else. And what you might find is that too much lateral without the correct forces in the lead side can cause this kind of slidey, kind of elegant type move in this lead side. So matching all of this up to what we see in the full pressures, we need this trail side to push from the inside to move the body back towards target. But what then happens in the lead leg is the lead leg then works as the braking mechanism. We push down through the lead side. That pushes the energy back up through the body. It then helps the lead side clear, stops us moving laterally, puts on the brakes on that side, and then the body can then take over and finish the golf swing with the acceleration that is produced from the deceleration from the ground. So we need this lateral movement, but this lead side has to act as a brake to stop that motion to allow everything to come through. Okay, so it's really, really important that these things are matched up. I'm talking specifically about trail side today, talking specifically about some drills and exercises you can do for trail side, but lead side is super important as part of this full system. Okay, so don't just take this one thing and think you're going to solve it. This is all part of a big system, big package, and we need to make sure that all of these pieces are working together. In macro golf, we call this your golfing blueprint. This forms part of a wider thing that we understand of your movement in terms of mobility, flexibility, power production, your left to right dominance. And when we work with players, we cover all of these things and make sure that all of these things are being covered. So, for example, you might have limited lateral movement. There'll be a reason why that happens. There'll be a reason why you're currently struggling with not getting the foot onto the inside, roll onto the outside. What we do is we understand exactly why that's happening, and then we'll go deep into fixing that along with the golf swing move. So we'll tie all the pieces of the body, the mind, and the golf swing. We put it all together and find the full kind of holistic solution for you. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I'll put details below about how you can work with us. So then guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you found it useful. Remember to subscribe to the channel. It really, really helps us out. Loads more videos coming in the next few weeks. But until then, see you on the next video.